And the Sharks start a 2-game Midwest road trip with a defeat. We'll break this one down and what it means for the Tankathon, what it means with the kids coming up right now on Teal Town After Dark. Good evening, everyone. It is March 28th, 2024. The Sharks lose to the Minnesota Wild 3-1. Welcome to Teal Town After Dark. This is your live interactive Sharks postgame. We do this after every game. If you want to be part of the show, here's how to do it. It's really simple and fun if you really want to be part of this. Chat with us and fellow Sharks fans all over the world and in Sharks territory on the YouTube page or the app. We encourage you to follow us on all the social medias. You name them, we're there. Find everything at tealtownusa.com, or if you want to support the pod, hit us up at Venmo at tealtownusa, or hit us up on the YouTube Super Chat right now if you're watching us live. And if you're watching the recap, please leave a comment down below. It really does help us out. Really, really does. Along with yours truly, Eric Curra, I am joined by Ian Reed.
Hello, I'm here. It wasn't my last show. I'm back.
He's made a quick recovery, folks.
I've made a quick recovery. Actually, you know what? Point of order before we get this started.
Oh no.
No. Let's address this quickly, very quickly. Not going to dwell on this for any extended period of time. So, last show, the one you didn't see unless you caught it live. Kind of a disaster. I did some stuff that was incredibly immature. I took over I had to stream the show. I took over the scrolling text. I did some really just childish shit, right? And you know what? For that, I apologize. I know I already apologized for this on Twitter. I apologize to everyone in the DM, but I'm going to do it again anyway, just for anyone who didn't see it, because I think that what we do here is obviously live all the time, right? It's very rare we release something that's pre-recorded. So when you do a live show, sometimes you're not on your game. Sometimes something happens before the show that really pisses you off. And then you kind of have to go on and try and do a show. Normally I can do this really, really well, right? That show I couldn't. I was really, really, really pissed off. And I'm not going to litigate why I was pissed off. The why doesn't matter. It's the how I responded to it. So that being said, I just want to apologize to everybody, the crew, right? Because I think that what I fail to remember sometimes is the actions that we do on this show reflect on the group as a whole. So to everybody that is under this umbrella, and I'm going to name everyone in no particular order. So if I don't name you, God, I'm sorry. If I name you in an order that you don't like, I'm sorry, I guess. But to obviously you, who had to do another show, which should never have had to happen, I apologize to you. I apologize to Jerk, Jules, Dana, AJ, Mark, Felix, Landy. Who am I missing? I'm missing somebody.
Mark, Kevin.
Kevin. Oh, Kevin. Yeah. Jesus Christ.
How dare you?
How dare I? The crew.
Yeah.
Obviously not my best moment. And I apologize for that. So I've listed everyone. I believe I don't forget anyone. If I forgot you, Jesus Christ, I'm sorry. But let's get to this game.
Do we really need to, though? I mean, there is. That's why we're here. I mean, of course. The Sharks start a 2-game road trip in the Midwest. They've lost 17 of their last 18 games. Now it's 18 of 19. They lost to Dallas 6-3 on Tuesday. Minnesota entered the game 9 points out of the last wild card spot. Granted, they've been kind of hot. They were 6 1-3 in their last 10, but they've only had like one win in their last 4 with an OTL that's kind of tough to St. Louis. But yeah, so that first period, dude, outshot 16-1 for the Sharks. Including, I think, what was it, the second penalty, which of course we have to mention was a hella dudes on the frozen pond penalty. Shout out Shalina Goldman, we love you. They had 8 shots on that power play.
Yeah.
Oh,
So when I signed up for tonight on the schedule, I always assumed like the Sharks are just playing late, right? I missed the first period. I clearly missed nothing.
Yeah.
It was nice that JD put out a compilation of all the Shark shots in the first period, which was, I thought, very kind of him. Caught me up, very nice. Yeah, it was. So I didn't catch the first period, but obviously I didn't miss very much. The Sharks didn't get off to a good start. I think you brought up the Minnesota Wild. Obviously they're fighting for their playoff life. So it's a super long shot, right? Because I think as much as everyone's saying like, oh, Vegas is really falling off, they're also 6-3-1, and I believe they just finished beating the Winnipeg Jets tonight. So they're making everyone's life kind of miserable trying to get in. I think the Blues were the team that I kind of had circled as the team that could kind of sneak in, but I just don't think that they've done themselves enough favors at this point it seems like every time that they have an opportunity to get going, they kind of stumble to, again, another team that's 6-3-1 is also. But I feel like there's been games where like the Vegas Golden Knights, they have a cushion, right? They have they can lose a game here or there because they have the points to make up. I feel like the Blues, even though like they've generally been good, they don't have the same margin of error as the Golden Knights do.
Yeah, you mentioned it just before. The Golden Knights on the verge of a victory. About 33 seconds left. The Jets down 3-1 in that one. So it's not gonna gain ground. They stay pace with Vegas. Minnesota does in that form. But yeah, the
math is really hard though, right?
I mean, looking at the standings. Minnesota is at, with the win, gets to 77. Vegas on the verge of the win will go to 88.
Yeah.
Okay, so NHL hasn't updated. I thought these were live standings. Okay, so Minnesota goes to 79.
They're pretty close.
Minnesota goes to 79.
Yeah, I'm seeing 79 now. I'm seeing 82 for the Blues, but I'm not seeing the Golden Knights. Is that game over yet, though?
I don't think that game's a final yet, but
okay.
Barring a crazy finish by Scheifele and company, yeah. But that it's tough. I mean, St. Louis has probably got the biggest chance out of it all. Otherwise, I mean, it's pretty much the 8th set. Maybe they jockey for position for that. So, but yeah, I mean, 16-1 is just ridiculous, and to have only one goal go in on there, Eriksson Ek gets his 30th of the season. With about 4 minutes to go in the period. I mean, you credit the Sharks for, well, let's be honest. Let's credit Blackwood for keeping them in the game, because this could have been, fugglier than me.
Oh, this could have been ugly. Yeah. Like that first period, again, I didn't see it, but just going by people who I trust that watched the first period, like their reaction to it. I mean, this is when you have a team that has given up 10 spots to other teams this season, and when I have people that I trust saying like that is one of the worst periods of hockey they've seen the Sharks play all year, like think of the ground that covers. Think of the ground that goes awful.
I mean, there's so many, and especially especially in the last 9 games, and we'll get to that stat in a bit. But it's just been ridiculous how ugly these periods have been for just allowing goals. So kudos to Blackwood for putting up 15 out of 16. to keep the Sharks in it, and they would stay in it throughout the rest of the second period, where they would outshoot Minnesota 9-7 and get a goal, which probably one of the more flukiest bounces I've seen. Mikael Granlund gets his 11th goal this season. I think it's his 49th point, so he's on the verge of hitting 50 there. But it was one of those weird caroms where I don't think he was just trying to shoot, but then he got the shot and then it kind of peeked through Gustafsson, and then just to make sure, made contact to put it back in the net. It's
Sorry.
What do you got? You got food? Is there something
I have rockets? No, my blood sugar's low, so I need to eat some rockets so that my brain doesn't stop functioning properly.
Yeah, we don't need that. Okay, it's all right. Hashtag no free ads, by the way.
Hashtag no free ads. But no sugar. Delicious.
You keep doing that.
It's fine.
But Granlund ties it up at 1-1. You get that, and you're thinking, okay, and they kind of calm the game down a little bit, and we're hanging tough in there, And then the third period happened, and not even a half minute into the third, Matt Boldy gets essentially the game-winning goal, where the puck just leaks out right to him in the back door and slams it home. And you would add an empty netter to Minnesota to make it 3-1. Ian, I don't know if you saw the Sharks feed tonight, but
I did.
In the third period and overtime, the Sharks have been outscored 22-1.
I mean,
in the last 9 games.
Okay, but the Sharks have also been outscored. The Sharks have had this year, and it's the crazy thing is there's 10 games left.
Yeah.
So this could get worse. In the cap era, the Sharks have the goal differential right now is -135, and there's time for it to get worse. 10 games, in fact.
If I remember correctly, the Washington Capitals have the record for the worst goal differential, correct?
I don't know. I was
one of the first years the Caps that they had it bad. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
But yeah, I don't know. I went back to the lockout. I didn't go back before that, and it's not even I think Anaheim had a pretty brutal one last year, and this has already surpassed that. So.
Oof. Yeah.
I don't know about completely since the league started, but I mean in the cap era, right? Because I think you could go back and look at something crazy historical or whatever, but I think when you're looking at teams in the cap era and kind of keeping all things equal, right? The way the game played, whatnot. I'm sure if you went back to the expansion era, I'm sure there were some pretty brutal ones in there, regional expansion era.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's not the same game either.
No, it isn't, but it sure feels like 1991 and 1992 all over again.
Sure, yeah, the Sharks team is bad, right? This is a historically bad team.
Yeah.
There's no getting around it. It's a historically bad team. So am I surprised by any stat that gets listed at this point? No. Not at all, because this has been a brutal season.
Yeah, I mean, the Sharks at 16, 48, and 8. We're going to get to 50. Heck, we might pick up our third.
We might
pick up our third 10-game losing streak on Saturday night.
I mean, I hope so. Wins at this point, there's. I know it's rough, right? But wins at this point don't help anything. Luna, what are we doing? Cat is such my animals are just menaces.
They're your support staff here.
They
and all transition.
She likes the tags on one of my jerseys still has some tags on it, and she's just she's just taking them down. It's on the ground. She's happy now. I don't know.
Yeah, but see how calm you got after you saw her. That's the thing.
Not it's funny because for the most part, I feel I've come a long way. Last show didn't.
Okay.
didn't. But I feel like the things that used to make me angry, like I used to be on Twitter, I used to get angry at like dumb shit on Twitter. Like now Twitter shit doesn't even phase. I'm just like, okay, fine, you have an opinion. It might be dumb, but like it's your opinion. That's fine. Like I'm not gonna argue with you about it. Like you know what I mean? Like if someone wants to have like a decent conversation, sure, I will have the conversation. But I'm not gonna like if you have a stupid opinion, like it's fine. You can have that opinion. I don't need to change your mind.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it. I get it. I think it's just that we've just hit a mellow point, and even then, it's still rough. You know, I mean, trying to think here. So the Sharks got 20 wins, if I'm not, and pretty good 49. I think you just said it.
Yeah,
You
like
know, if you told me last year we would not get 20 wins, I would have thought you were crazy. Yeah,
I feel like everyone gets 20 wins these days. Like 20 wins is almost like it feels like it should be a given, but
it should be a given.
But I mean, Chicago pretty bad too, right? I mean, they've got 21.
Yeah,
at least.
Yeah, I mean the closest one that's in the playoff hunt. I mean, Seattle has 29 wins. They've had like 13 overtime losses. That's just ridiculous. But if you combine,
what was the Sharks last year, right? Overtime loss merchants.
Yeah, I mean, they had 20 wins last year. They're at 16, 36 wins. I'm just kind of looking 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I mean, there's at least 13 teams that have 36 wins, which is the combined total the Sharks have had in the last 2 seasons. You know,
yeah, it's bad.
it takes a toll, and that's kind of what I was saying on the second show the other night. It's like I think overall now it's just been there's been so much. It's like in so much torture, especially this season, because you can name it. You're on the verge of a third 10-game losing streak. You can say you've had now 4 9+ game losing streaks. There was the time where Vancouver scored 10, which was more goals than the Sharks have had the entire season at the time.
Yeah.
You could go on and on about anything and everything where, or this last stretch where they allowed like multiple goals in the third period, like last.
Yeah, I think, and look at the frustrating thing too, I think from a perspective, and I think that where I can get frustrated with the team is like, not only are the Sharks bad and at the bottom of the league, but the Barracuda's there too, right? I don't blame, I think at this point, I get it, right? Like it's been what? We're gonna go to season 5 without playoffs now at this point.
Yep.
And with no end in sight, right? And I think it's going to kind of dovetail into something else we're going to talk about in a minute. But like, I get it. Like, I understand the frustration for Sharks fans. Like, I don't like it's hard now because it's like you've been bad for 5 years.
And it's
like now you kind of have to preach a little bit of patience, but it's hard to ask for that because again, like the Sharks spent 3 years. Okay, like the first one I'll give them, right? Like 29, like
right.
We got to remember, like the year before everything fell apart, this was a team in the conference finals. I will give you 1 season of okay, like we're kind of dumbfounded how we got here.
Sure.
But then they spent 2 more just denying reality.
Right.
Before Mike Greer comes in and actually kind of kicks this into gear. Yeah. So I get people being frustrated. I get people being unhappy. Right? Like for me, I watched this game on TV. I did go to a game this year, right? But like I watched this game on TV. I'm not paying for season tickets. I'm not a guy who's in the trenches at SAP Center, right? So like, while I would preach patience because at this point, what else can you do? When I see people being angry, like I'm not gonna try and tell them they don't have a right to be angry. Of course they do.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course. I mean, and especially this year, where, like I said, we've dealt with so much stuff.
Yeah,
and that's it. I mean, last year it's like, okay, at least they were entertaining. They'll probably get better next season. No, we've gotten worse, and it's gotten not just worse on a season level. But
at least
worse
now they're worse because they're trying to be worse. Like I can respect that, right? Like it's worse when they were in denial of where they were
Right.
as a team and didn't accept that and were bad. Like that's the part that I think is going to frustrate more people, right?
Yeah.
We could have started this process a lot sooner. Like I said, I'll give you the one season of conference finals to nothing, and then you're like, what happened? I will give you that. That's fine. It's the doing it for 2 more seasons and being like, I don't know how we got here. How did this happen? What, like at that point, yeah, okay, great. Like that's where the problem comes in, right? And I think it kind of dovetails into, because obviously, Honey, Wake Up, there's another The Sharks Rebuild is Doomed podcast came out today.
Right.
The newest Sharks Are Doomed podcast, right? And it's like,
oh God.
So Frank Saravalli, and I think and again, much like I think there's points to be made that are good, right? But it's like, oh God, it's time, the Sharks really have to tear this thing down. Like, my guy who is left, who is still here that we need to kick out the door, right? I guess you could make an argument like Mikael Granlund, you could have maybe kicked him out the door. But I think if we take everything at face value and Hertl being the trade that was in the works and one retention slot, right? And I think this is another thing too that I think needs to kind of like, this narrative needs to die. Like, oh my God, the retention slots, what will the Sharks do now? The retention slots are all gone. It's over. It's fine. Like, because again, like, look at, you have 2 contracts left. You have 2 guys left that are holdovers from the old team, right? You have Marc-Edouard Vlasic and you have Logan Couture. Logan Couture at this point, I don't know if Logan Couture is ever going to play again. Like,
that's the thing.
Because here's the thing, right? Like, I was kind of like, I know, like, when he was like, I didn't know if I'd play again earlier in the season, I kind of downplayed that because Logan Couture is kind of a whiny bitch, right? Like, he's kind of a moody guy. No, but he's kind of a moody guy, right? Like, he's, you know what I mean? So, like, I have trouble taking things that he says at face value because I don't know what's actually there and what's just him kind of being moody about it. And I think when he was having trouble getting back in, and it's like, okay, well, yeah, he's like, I didn't know if I'd play again. And it's like, well, when a return to the ice takes longer than you expected, like, sometimes that's how you just feel, right?
Right.
And I think that because Logan Couture is he's an honest guy, right? But I think, like, he says what he feels. He doesn't, like, for guys that always kind of give boring hockey things, like, Logan Couture will actually tell you what he's thinking. But, like, but then you have to be like, is that what you feel like, or is that reality? You know what I mean? Like, and with Logan Couture, sometimes that line gets really blurred.
Yeah. And you said it there. Couture is the one that's kind of like, well, you can move him, but the question is, can he move?
Can he move, right? So it's like, so I don't think Logan Couture, like, we don't know what's going to happen. Like, if he can get healthy again, and this injury that he has, again, like, and I've said this before, and other people have said it that are way smarter than I am, have said that, this isn't an injury that you recover from. This is an injury that you manage. So, will Logan Couture play again? I don't know. But at this point, like, I don't think that Logan Couture being here still doesn't mean, like, oh, well, the rebuild hasn't started. Logan Couture is still on the team, Ian. And Marc-Edouard Vlasic still on the team. Like, look at all the players that have gone out the door at this point. Like, finished the teardown. Marc-Edouard Vlasic has 2 years left on his deal after this year. Now you can't retain salary to get rid of him. You'd probably have to pay to get rid of him at this point. And because of his value as a player and his cap hit, right? The real dollars aren't terrible. So you could buy Vlasic out just to get him out the door, just to get him out, right? And maybe you do that. But, like, why at this point?
No.
What's the point?
Yeah. That's the big thing.
You turned a 2-year problem into a 4-year problem. Like, the cap hit isn't brutal. Like, it's doable, right? It's just to say, like, well, Marc-Edouard Vlasic isn't here yet, right? But, like, again, like, but then I don't trust Mike Grier to open up enough slots because of all the fucking 6th, 7th defensemen that continue to take space on this team that I think are far more egregious than Marc-Edouard Vlasic at this point, right? And again, 2 years, Vlasic's off the book. Is it like I've seen there's been a lot of discussion on Twitter about this today, and again, right, like I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'm here to tell you what I think. So
Oh
I've
my
seen people.
God.
I've seen. Well, no, I think it's
It's
important thing.
true.
That's an important
It's
thing to
true.
say,
No,
right?
that's very
Like
true.
I'm not here to tell you what to think. Like I don't want like the last thing that I would want is someone to watch this show and being like, well, this is like what should I think? Like maybe my opinion will help you make yours, and I think that's fine, right?
Yeah.
But like if we don't agree, it's also fine. And I've seen a lot of really good arguments against like buying Vlasic out, keeping Vlasic, whatever. My opinion, I don't know why at this point, after you've moved on from Burns, Carlson, Timo Meyer, Tomas Hertl, Logan Couture being what Logan Couture is at this point. Like at this point, I don't know if moving Vlasic out just to buy him out. Like to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I think it turns a 2-year problem into a 4-year problem.
Yeah.
But I've heard a lot of arguments. Like I've seen decent arguments as to why maybe you do buy him out. Maybe it makes room for another guy to come up, like a Muga Madulin, for example. But if you want to bring in guys like Muga Madulin, stop signing Burrows, Benning, like all these guys that you've brought in to kind of just be the McDonald's. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
they have a lot of guys on defense that are just like they've got a lot of seventh defensemen that are kind of in spots that you could also get rid of some of those guys and make room for guys like Madulin, whatever, right? But the other argument I'd also say too is like with Vlasic being in the situation where Vlasic's in at this point in his career, then if it's a true meritocracy, and it isn't, we know this, but if that's what they always preach, right? Meritocracy. I want to see guys kick Vlasic out of his spot. I want to see guys come in and make it to the point where they have to buy out Vlasic because he's taking up room. Right now, that hasn't happened. That's what I want to happen. I want guys to come in and take jobs. I don't want guys to be given jobs just because we're got to turn it over to the kids, right? Guys need to take jobs. That's it.
All right. May I chime in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
You were on a run. I was just going to let you go.
I was on a run. I had to make sure I got it all out of my system.
All right. You're going to need mentors for these kids. You cannot throw
That too.
You cannot throw this to the kids and just be like, "Okay, win a Stanley Cup." No.
Right.
That would be great. I mean, that'd be
Sure.
probably the greatest rebuild ever. But the thing is that you need mentors like Vlasic.
The Colorado, we call that.
Right. You have the yeah, right. You have the Vlasic. You have the Couture. I mean, I hope.
This is why I don't hate Jan Ruda being on the team, because I think like Jan Ruda is a guy that I think is nice to have around for the kids.
Right. Those guys you need for the kids to start flourishing. Otherwise, I think if it was all the kids right now going through this, and you could see the demoralization on the squad here. I think after the empty netter, I think they showed a shot of like Bailey and Zetterlund, and you could just see Zetterlund's just usually has a big old smile, you know. I mean, it's not as big as Hurdles was, but it was like a big old smile that, you know, that kind of can, you know, share it. Tonight it's just like, okay, it's hitting again. And looking at some of the quotes here, because we're not getting any tonight. I think from Sheng, David Quinn says, "We're dying for a win here. I feel for the guys." You know, I mean,
100%, right? Like, and that's the thing, like, too, like, losing, like, it's great for us because we're like, tank, Celebrini, blah, 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 blah. But, like, losing sucks. Like, for those guys, like, these guys are all, you don't get to the NHL because you don't give a shit. Right. I mean, apparently you get to the NHL because your parents are loaded, but you don't get there.
What? Shit. Oh, the Zach Hyman thing. Dang it. Mom, we should have won the lottery. Damn it.
Yeah, like, and I get, like, and I'm seeing in the chat too, like, people are like, Vlasic's not the guy you want to mentor. Yeah, I'm with you guys on that, but he's the guy that I want to be there to he's the old guard. I want kids to take his job. That's what I want.
Yeah, I mean, does he have to play every game? As we've seen, he doesn't have to play every game. There's no, you know, games played streak going on here that you don't need to have him there. Have him there, you know. I mean, I don't know what it is with Patty and Jumbo being around the kids, but they need to have them around. I mean, they don't need to have them on the roster or the bench or anything like that, but to go around day to day to be with these guys, it needs to be there, because otherwise, just having them sit around and just seeing this, yeah, I'd probably want out too.
Yeah.
Let's go through the chat a little bit.
Felix wants to hear my thoughts on the Hyman thing. May I?
By all means.
So I think that it's weird, right? Because I think Andrew Berkshire. Now, I don't totally read a ton of Andrew Berkshire, so I don't know enough about Andrew Berkshire as a person. So I'm not gonna. I've seen a lot of weird accusations made about this, and I'm not going to address them. I think that he tried to bring a really important point up. I just don't understand why he wanted to use Zach Hyman to make that point. I think that, like, when we look at hockey players in general, like, for me, I just generally assume, like, if you're an NHL player, you come from some level of privilege, because that's just how expensive this game is. Like, you just, in order to even get on the radar of like a junior team or a college team, right? Like, the money that goes into that is gotten insane. Actually, there's a really good book that if you're a book reader, and you kind of like the business of sports, Ken Campbell wrote a really interesting book called Selling the Game that kind of goes through like some of the sacrifices that some families have to make, and somehow how families sometimes get taken on a ride too by people that don't have the kids' best interest at heart and just kind of want to enrich themselves. It's a really good book. I highly suggest it to anyone. I think that like what he was trying to like put a light on is like that, hockey is a sport more than any other of privilege. And I think that we need to do more to make hockey more affordable for more families, I think.
Right.
But that being said, why he chose to go about it the way he did and like make it about Zach Hyman, it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I think that Zach Hyman's a guy who has worked his ass off to get to where he is. I don't think that money alone is going to get you into the NHL. Like, you have to work, right? Like, I don't understand why he went that way about it. It's a really confusing thing.
Yeah.
So I like, you know what I mean? It's something that I think we've talked about on this show previously, on previous different shows, maybe not After Dark specifically, but other shows like TTGs and stuff. We've definitely talked about how expensive hockey has gotten for the average family.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
But again, like, why would you go after, like, why would you use Zach Hyman to make that point? I don't know.
Yeah, Felix adding in there, well, he wanted to use Hyman because the media was talking about how Hyman worked hard to get his 50 goals, and I think that point that Berkshire very poorly tried to argue against.
He did, though. Like Zach Hyman, like what's Zach Hyman? He's like a 5th round pick. He's a guy who came in the league, and people, one of his big knocks on his early scouting reports was skating. And like, I don't think anyone talks about his skating anymore. Like, it was a really weird and dumb way to make that point. I think there's other ways he could have made that point without being like, well, this media narrative silly. Like, it doesn't, like, coming from wealth isn't enough to get into the NHL. You have to obviously have talent, and you obviously have to work. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think some people, like, obviously have more innate talent than others, and that's true in anything, but you still have to work. You still have to hit the gym and do all the things. Like, you like, maybe your parents have the money to put you in all these extra skills camps and everything else, but you still have to, like, go and do the skills camps, man.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, these kids, like, their summer is like, back in the day when kids were coming up, right? Like, they played all other sports in the summers, they go play baseball in the summer or something else. Now it's skills camps, your skating camps, your shooting camps. Like, you have to obviously go and put the work in. So to say that Zach Hyman didn't put the work in, I think is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Obviously, like, yes, the barrier for entry into, like, high level hockey is a thing, but to say that he didn't put the work in, I think is, or that like he didn't, like, it's such a nonsensical point. And I think it's unfortunate that he tried to put a light on something that probably needs a light on it, but did it in the most obtuse way possible.
Yeah, it didn't just come out right. The I will say this, I played junior B out in Oakland and Berkeley. This is way back in 1997, and it was expensive.
Yeah.
And everything. And nowadays, when you have stores, and I mean, I know they're a little bit more easily available up there, up in Canada, but over here, I mean,
Mhm.
you literally have the pro shops at the rinks. Like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
closest thing I would have for hockey equipment would be at Oakland Ice Center. With
Well,
me.
it's not even. It's. I mean, the
And
sticks are obvious. Like, sticks are obviously super
all the
expensive. I
sticks
think
are
sticks are
ridiculous.
ridiculous. But I think the real advantage to coming from privilege or wealth or whatever is the access to like the skills camps and everything else, which I think is
Right.
the big game changer.
Yeah,
But
and
I don't know.
those
It's
those camps can be ridiculous. I
oh yeah,
even checked into it
100%.
before, way back when. It's like they always talked about, ooh, the Minnesota hockey camp. This is the camp that the Sharks went to, and or you always
Oh
have
yeah,
like some former pro trying to do it and throwing it in there, and it's tough, dude.
yeah.
It's in the desires there, then yeah, you got to go through it, and especially up in there, like I mean, let's see. Well, use Patrick Marleau for instance. From Aneroid, Saskatchewan, he's going to
Yeah.
go play in Seattle, which it's no due respect, and I'm using Mississauga as an example, but Seattle's totally different from Mississauga up there to be such a big market in a big town. It's just crazy, and Marty even saying also academy
Academy
hockey
hockey,
has
yeah,
been
academy, yeah,
changed the
all the
culture.
like the skills camps, academy hockey. Like there's a lot of there's a lot of money involved. There's a lot, and like even when you're like AAA, like some of the bullshit AAA stories I hear, man, of just like it's like, oh, this guy didn't invite the coach to his camp this summer, and and his kid didn't get any ice time. Like
Right,
there's so much bullshit, and like what I mean? Like it's
right.
just
No,
there's a lot of bullshit and drama that goes into like high level hockey, which
yeah,
and I can only speak to the stories I've heard. Obviously, my kids don't play high level hockey or any hockey for that matter. So I don't want to like, make this sound like I'm talking super, but you hear stories. You hear a lot of stories,
yeah.
unfortunately,
It's
about how this shit works.
yeah, and heck, you can go look at the reference of the Mighty Ducks, that District 5 team that Gordon Bombay takes over. Literally mentioning Goldberg, the goalie, using old copies of the Inquirer as his pads.
Yeah,
And it sucks. That you
for sure.
gotta get that. So,
And I'm not saying like there's no hockey opportunity.
anyways,
Like obviously, like there's house leagues and stuff that kids can play in, and it's
hmm
not like poor kids can't play hockey at all. I just think that, but the barrier to get into like high level, to get on the radar of the teams, especially if you're looking to get into like junior hockey, college hockey, whatever.
right.
Yeah,
All right.
it's
I think we've gone over this a bit, but yeah, it's crazy to see the pricing of it all, and
yeah,
Oakland guitars. You mentioned my kid played the junior Sharks and league fees, private lessons,
yeah,
camp, travel gear, uniforms. I can
adds
only
up, man.
imagine how much you've used.
Super adds up.
Yeah, it's tough. Plus, they grow. One of my best
That's it, yeah.
one of my best
They
friends
do.
is a coach in Idaho, and he's been on here. So Russell, if you're watching, good to see you. But his son Cole, he went from forward to goaltender, and
Oh,
and yeah,
pain.
yeah, and then one growth spurt, and all of a sudden the big goalie pads just became Q-tips.
Well, I
So
think, and that's the thing, right? Like, I think, and that's the thing too. Like, and you kind of see that kind of extrapolate, right? Because I think if you look at like just how players are coming out, like,
yeah,
once upon a time, like Canada used to produce some really good goalies. We kind of don't anymore. Why? Because why would you like, You know what I mean? If you're going to invest that money, like make them play forward, make them play defense, because at least then there's more opportunities obviously to play on that team than,
Right.
carrying two goalies. Like it's hard. Like I think that, I think parents for perspective too, it's like, why do I want my kid to be a goalie when there's like so few of those positions available as you continue to go up? Whereas
Mm-hmm.
like forwards, every team carries 12 forwards, every team carries X number of defensemen, right? Every team carries two goalies. Like, and then, and you kind of see that going up where you see kind of positions that some countries used to be strong in. Like I think Canada used to be really strong in goaltending. And now
Right.
if you're looking for a goalie, like, you're like, hey, who's really good over in Russia right now? Who's good
Yeah.
Sweden?
Speaking of Russian goalies, great segment, Ian.
I know I'm good at this.
Wow. Wow. Rob, I'm mentioning anyone hear about Fedotov?
Fedotov.
Fedotov? I almost want to say Fedorov,
Yeah.
possibly going to Philly. I guess his contract was ripped up in the KHL.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm not going to pretend I'm a super expert on the KHL. So my understanding of what I've just kind of quickly looked into from this is that that his team, obviously one of the more prominent teams in the KHL, I think it's CCSKA. They went out in the first round, and I think that there's been a coaching change already, and yeah, so he's finally looks like he's finally going to be able to come over and play for the Philadelphia Flyers, and not a second too soon, obviously, with
Right.
things that have been in Philadelphia. Obviously, Carter Hart is indisposed onto issues I'm not going to go into here because we'll get demonetized or something silly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think it's a nice boon for a team that is obviously still in a playoff picture. Yeah, it's going to be a nice for them, right? He's a goalie that I looked at his K numbers. His K numbers were pretty good. Wins and losses weren't there, obviously, but I thought like his like the goaltending stats I thought were decent for him in the case. So it'll be interesting to see how he comes over and adjusts to the North American ice. It's a big up for the Flyers, who I think losing Carter Hart for the reasons that they did. Obviously, the reasons that they lost him for are awful, and I'm not trying to downplay that, obviously, but from a pure hockey perspective, and I feel like there's no way I can say this that's not going to make someone angry. So I apologize to you if you're angry at me for not being harder, like from not the Carter Hart thing is so much more important than hockey. Yes, you're right, it is. But from a just a hockey perspective, the Flyers obviously could use some help in goal, and they're going to get it.
Yeah. That's crazy. It's just, yeah. And like a tiger, Russia must be doing something right still.
Well,
Yeah.
it's the way the European system, right, is so different than what we do over here. Is obviously like you don't draft players, right? Like you just kind of like once you're a player in a certain organization, you just kind of come up that organization from top to bottom. It's not like junior where like the junior teams obviously have no ties to NHL teams, right? So you can't just throw a junior goalie into an NHL game and say, "Hey, here,
Right.
kid, like here's some experience for you. Do that," right? Whereas like in Sweden, and when you got guys that are playing in like the European leagues where they kind of they just go through the club until they get to the top of that club's tree. um they get to play I think they get to play in better opportunities. Like I think that like while I enjoy junior hockey and I think junior hockey is really good, it's not always I don't think it's the best way to develop all players. And I think sometimes you get guys like, I think we're going to look at a guy like from just to bring this to a Sharks perspective, right? You have a guy like Quentin Musty who has absolutely torn it up
Oh.
in Sudbury this year, and next year, like his options are he can play in the NHL, which I don't think is the play there, or he has to go back to junior, right? He can't play
Yeah.
on the
For the
Barracuda
Barracuda.
because of the transfer agreement, right? Whereas like if Quentin Musty was a guy playing in Sweden, for example, he would probably maybe he wouldn't get the minutes on the top tier team, but he would have that option to play on the top tier team. You know what I mean?
Right. He would have the option or just go in his overage year in Sudbury and score like 200 points.
I love that Marty's loving me. Just loving me squirm on the Carter Hart thing. I knew Marty would enjoy that.
How dare you? Yeah.
Yeah, and also another beautiful segue there. Obviously, Linkoping. I think that's how you say it.
Sure.
Their season ended today. So I'm curious to see. Now, Havlid isn't under contract with the Sharks yet. His rights are still held. But both Havlid and Beasted are now basically, their seasons are done. So it'll be interested. I'm hoping that we see Beasted on the Barracuda coming up.
Yes.
I don't think he's going to play on the Sharks again, because I don't think the Sharks have any room for anyone right now, right? Like, I want to see Gushkin come back up. I want to see Mukhamadullin come back up, but like, there's no room at the end. So I'm hoping that we will see Beasted in action a little bit for the Barracuda, who are unfortunately playing for nothing. But I'm hoping that that he'll come over and get a few games in the Barracuda.
Yeah, just like Mukhamadullin did last season at the end of the year.
Yeah, so I'm kind of hoping to see that, and maybe Havlid gets a contract, and he also maybe gets a couple of games in, or at least an ATO or something.
Yeah.
To get a couple of games in with the CUDA. The CUDA also signed an ATO with a couple of guys from Vermont.
Yeah.
I don't know much about I think it was a defenseman and a goalie. I don't know much about the defenseman. I haven't looked in, but the goalie intrigued me. Really decent numbers for Vermont, who obviously didn't make their playoffs. I always get confused on how the college system works. So there's like playoffs over here, and then there's playoffs over there, and then it's all weird. It makes no sense to me. But really intriguing numbers for the goalie. I'm curious to see if he gets a game in at this point somewhere, because I'd like to see that. The goalie, again, the Barracuda goaltenders, I think they have like 5 of them down there right now. Corona played yesterday, I believe, and lost in the game against the Reign. Mackenzie had a shutout the last game I watched Tim play, which means that we won't see him for a month. Because it feels like every time he has like an amazing, like just an outstanding game, he's hurt again. And I'm not saying Mackiniemi's hurt. I'm just being silly here.
No, of
but it'll be interesting to see if Gabriel Carrier.
Yeah, Gabriel Carrier and defenseman Jeremy Buechler. I'm guessing that's so.
I'm curious to see what both of those guys do. And on the topic of the Barracuda, there will be a Barracuda show after the game tomorrow. I haven't talked to Jules yet. I don't know if Jules is going to be there. Me and Kevin are going to be there for sure. And it's probably going to be a little bit of a wrap up of the season, because the Barracuda season's over. I think if Abbotsford gets another point, they would officially eliminate the Barracuda from the playoffs.
Okay.
But they are so far out of it that they are. So I'm not sure if Jules is available tomorrow, but I kind of want to do another Barracuda show tomorrow and kind of just give a little bit of a wrap up on the season, even though the season's not officially over. And maybe if something happens, Beasted comes over, we'll have another show. But for right now,
the Barracuda are at 51 points with 62 played. The Canucks, the baby Canucks, are at 70. They can't. Is it 72 or is it still 68 for the Pacific Division? I'm trying to remember that.
They have 10 games. That'll tell you how many games remaining they have on their schedule. But if the Barracuda, the most they could get if they went on this massive heater is 61 points. I think that, or 71 points. I think that's what Abbotsford has right now. If they get one more point, the Barracuda cannot. The Barracuda heater, let's all laugh. This is when we throw our heads back and laugh, because they haven't been on a heater all season. They'd have to win out their last 10 games. I don't see it. Yes. But Abbotsford's going to pick up another point in there. So, like I said, it's pretty end.
And for the matter, the Barracuda would also have to leapfrog San Diego and Henderson.
Yeah, Beauty Bandit saying Macadamia was watching with Nabby last game. Usually he's watching solo with another CUDA scratch. So, again, I'm not trying to say Macadamia was injured. I'm just saying that's kind of how his season was going. It was a poor joke. Like, I do like Macadamia, but at this point, like I said, there's a lot of goalies down there. But I don't think you can have enough goalie enough goalie prospects at this point.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued, right?
Yeah. Carrier just wrapped up his senior season at the University of Vermont. What are you laughing now?
Tiger
Oh
says a very
God,
good hitter is where
Tiger,
they go
really?
4 minutes without conceding a penalty. He's not wrong. That might be a Barracuda heater at this point.
I don't know. Tucson was really going off on the Cuda, trying to really cheap shot that in that other game the other day. Carrier is 23 years old. He just wrapped up his senior season at Vermont, where he went 13, 17, and 3 in 33 games with a 2.79 goals against and a 9.06 save percentage.
Really good for a team that that isn't playing for anything. Obviously, like I think it's always nice to see goalies that put up decent stats on a team that's not very good. And a lot of the people that, like, when I mentioned that I was intrigued, I had a few people on Twitter reach out to me that have watched him on Vermont and said that he kept them in games that they had no business being in. How can you not be intrigued by that?
Yeah, no, it's give him a shot. Like Magnus Krona. You pick that up in a trade with Tampa for.
I always say this, right? Like I don't know if there's an NHL goalie in the group down there, but if you want to add another one to the mix, and it's the issue obviously is giving everyone playing time, and obviously I think bringing in a guy in an ATO like that, I think it's a nice thing to do. It'll be interesting to see. Like I feel like you don't bring him in on an ATO if it's not a guy that you're interested in bringing in next year. So I'm curious to see who's the odd man out next season for the Barracuda. I'd have to look at the Cat Friendly to see who could be out the door here. Let me do that really quickly.
You do that, and I'll talk about Buchler.
Mackenzie could be out the door. That was quick.
Jesus.
Well, I mean, look at he's this is his last season. He's an arbitration eligible RFA next season. So I mean, he could be a guy that they just don't circle back to.
Yeah. Buchler played in 33 games with the Catamounts this season. 6 goals, 12 assists, and 27 PIMs. 6'4", 209 pounders.
Big dude.
Yeah, he spent the last 4 seasons at Northeastern. So
okay.
He
and then transferred to Vermont. Interesting. Yeah, interesting. Like I think that Mike Greer has done a decent job of addressing. I think if you looked at the Sharks prospect pool, I've said this many times, that I think Mike Greer's done a good job of addressing, of at least trying to address. Like, we don't have a number one guy. I don't know if I don't think Muka Madulin's a number one D, but I think he's a very good D, and I think he could be a good D for the Sharks going forward. Rather, I think that he's done a good job of trying to shore up the deficiency of defense that was a glaring hole in our prospect pool.
So be on the lookout for even deeper coverage of these 2 signings and more on Teal Tinted Glasses
tomorrow. Yeah.
Tomorrow, following the Barracuda playing who?
I don't even know who they're playing. I just don't do a show after.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I know. This is how plugged in I am to the Barracuda at this point. Let me take a peek.
He'll do that, and like a Tiger, Mike loves his NCAA boys. Well,
yes. They are playing the Calgary Wranglers tomorrow. R.I.P.
Okay. Yeah, they're done.
Tomorrow? What is going on here? I thought it was a late game tomorrow. Oh, all right. I don't know. Might need to talk to Kevin again and be like, hey, are we really doing this at X time? I don't know. Give me a second. I will stay tuned tomorrow. We will nail this shit down.
This is where it's great to follow us on the socials to let you know when we go on the air.
But have no plan, and then we just kind of be like, this is what we're doing.
But if you really hate the socials, give us a thumb up right now. Hit that subscribe button, and of course, hit that notification bell.
Yes.
That'll notify you when we do go on the air.
Oh man, look at you getting all the YouTube stuff in.
Heck yeah! Well,
do the YouTube stuff.
Why not? Thank you, Steve Dangle.
Oh yes, the hurdle shirt. Let's finish on that.
Oh dear Lord,
how do you feel about this?
I mean, it's painful. I mean, but the Sharks didn't trademark it. They weren't going to have, steal it from Hurdle, because that's essentially what it would be. And granted, they stole a lot of things from me, but I digress.
I mean, my thoughts are first, how fucking dare you?
Okay.
But at the same time, it is what it is, right? my initial reaction was, how fucking dare you?
Yeah. I mean, that'd be like if you're a Giants fan, you would see Pablo Sandoval seeing the Red Sox selling Panda shirts, or gosh.
Yeah, but how fucking dare you?
Yeah.
How fucking dare you, Vegas? How fucking dare you?
Well, and
if you champion.
And if you look at the quote tweets out there on it,
I'm sure that I'm not the only person who had that response.
One, Sharks fans are having a shit fit, but number two, the Vegas fans are loving it every moment of it because they know how triggered it makes the Sharks fans. So
yeah.
So putting a bow onto all this, yes, the Sharks will go for 10 in a row.
10, baby.
Without a win. On Saturday night against the St. Louis Blues. That is a 5:00 start. I hope so. Out in the Midwest.
I'm not on that one.
Well, this is where we did like 11 in a row, and we were getting frustrated and upset and everything. The thing is that. What next? Yeah, it is a 5 p.m. start on Saturday. I believe it's me and Jules. So
yeah,
the Celebrini coverage will be through the roof, indeed. And I believe Will Smith will play in the NCAA tournament then, so we'll have more info on that.
Doing great, right? Like, what a great time to be like, as shitty as a time it is to be a Sharks fan, though. But like, you have like Quentin Musty doing just Quentin Musty things, which has been ridiculous, right?
Had an assist tonight, and the Wolves beating the Steelheads.
Yep. Luca Cagnoni. I know some people are interested. There's he's one. I think he's like maybe one of the more divisive prospects in the Sharks pool, but I think he had just like an unreal season in the Western Hockey League, and you also had a guy who like was the lead scorer in college hockey. Like, when is the last time the Sharks have ever had like guys all popping off at the same time doing crazy shit? Yeah. The answer is never.
And you just hope that one of them can stick and be a star. And if you want to get greedy, get more.
Yeah, and Tiger's saying, who's this Tomas Hertl guy? I don't know him. I don't know him either. Yeah, like look at he had like a historic season.
Incredible
in the
season.
Western Hockey League, right? Like Cagnoni's when is the last time the Sharks have had like this many guys popping off? Like, it's usually there's been like they've always had like guys where it's like, oh, that's interesting, but like doing historic shit, nope, that's never been a Sharks prospect thing. So
yeah, Jules saying putting up
90 points is I knew he had popped off. I didn't remember the exact numbers. Thank you, Jules. But like, you know what I mean? Like, it's as much as this all sucks, like, it's nice to see guys doing cool things. Like, it's not all negative. It's again, like, I think the thing, unfortunately, that we have to preach now is patience.
Yes. That's the thing. Patience is.
It's going to be a virtue, man. But it's at some point, though. Like, at some point there'll be time for no more patience. But right now, it's patience. Patience is the key to the whole thing. Yeah,
and Jonathan Becker did put out the kids' schedules with playoffs and everything.
Yeah, I like that he does that. I think that I like that he does that. I think it's something that the Sharks should have done a long time ago.
Absolutely. And I think, because the team is excited to see all these kids come up and be successful, it's great. Cagnoni will play on Friday, 7 p.m. I believe that's against Victoria for the Portland Winterhawks, and then they go back to back. I think the 6:00 one is game 2 for Portland on that one. So be on the lookout for that. So I think we're pretty much done here.
I hope so. I mean, we have gone an hour on an After Dark, which
shouldn't never
we're not supposed to do. Yeah. But you know what? When the show's this good, you just fucking keep going. That's how this works.
So let's talk about how Will Smith is putting up Eichel numbers almost. No. we're not going to torment you
I
that
love
much.
me some. I know that I always like people get super pissed. I love me some Jack Eichel, man. I know this makes people very angry because he's the Golden Knight. I don't care. I love me some Jack Eichel.
Well,
All right, let's go.
all right. So moving onward, in case you missed anything, what do you want to watch this again? Check us out on tealtownusa.com. Damn it, that's a Kelly Finn graphic. There we go. That's better. Or your favorite podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. You can always hit us up at on the YouTube, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. We appreciate each and every one of you. So to put a wrap on this hour-long show, your final thoughts.
Final thoughts: when the Sharks do bad, it's good, and when the Sharks do good, it's also good. That is how this works at this point, man. Like, can we just get to the end of the fucking season?
With a 7-point lead, we can get a win. I mean, I'm just putting that out there.
No winning
God.
allowed. Like, just like let's
You
drag
want to go
this up.
19 in a row without a win?
Yes, I just look at, man. I don't care. Again, it's a lottery. Shit can happen. I'm not saying that finishing last guarantees the Sharks anything, and I think it's very important to stress that to people. It is a lottery. There's, shit can still happen, but I want the Sharks to make the best. Having the best odds is still better than not having the best odds. Right. And I don't fuck this up, Sharks. Don't fuck this up. You have been bad all season. Don't stop being bad now.
Oh, come on. Where's Noah Gregor for his hat trick again?
Fuck that guy. Fuck anybody. I don't care. Mikhail Granlund suddenly goes off. He's on my shit list. Like, no, fuck all those guys. It's not time to be for late season heroics. It's time to be bad and miserable. And please, mercifully, let the season end.
Yeah. And honestly, it's been a rough weekend or a rough week. So.
It has been a rough week. Like let's just
Let's just get out of here. Oh, so now let's talk about Nashville's point streak may come to an end today. Your thoughts on that?
I mean, again,
wow, it is going to come to an end. The Desert Dogs are up 6-3 with about 2.5 to go. Wow,
super unfortunate. But that being said, Roman Josi should win the fucking Norris, and I don't want to be the team that pulls Nashville in the first round. That's all I'm saying. That's get out. Let's stop this. Come on.
Which currently would be Vancouver. So
sucks to be Vancouver. I do not want anything to do with Nashville in the first round.
Yeah. So for Ian, I'm Eric. TTG tomorrow. We'll be back on Saturday following Sharks and Blues for After Dark. Until then, keep it real, keep it teal, keep it real.
Pucknologist Sunday.
And Pucknologist Sunday. So Teal together, everyone. Good night.
Yeah.